Creative geniuses are not born, but made. They are not especially endowed, but they were optimized for curiosity and creativity. And I'll tell you, they are not so secret secrets in this full guide to purposeful creativity. As defined there. Our mind is responsible for our creativity. So optimizing for it is going to be the goal here. Creativity is manifested in neural connectivity, diffused thinking, lateral thinking tools, and a good balance of neurotransmitters. I will unpack this gift of tools for you to optimize your creativity by scientifically backed tools of creativity enhancement. But we'll do that after a very quick and brief overview of the neural mechanisms of how creativity manifests in humans, so that you grow in the smarts and actually understand the mechanisms under it, so that you can create your own tools for it as well. So basically we have a left brain and a right brain. Of course, it is not that simple, but generally, our left brain is the one that is being responsible for logical higher order thinking, whilst our right brain being responsible for creativity and artistic endeavors. And for actionable and productive creativity, we need to have a good balance in between these two. This means enhancing the neural connectivity and the communication between these two sides of the brain. Because creative people are not only one side, they're not only the right side, but they need to have a good balance in between these two. They need to have greater neural connectivity in between these two places. We can facilitate this communication between the two sides of the brain by habitual and cognitive techniques, as well as physical supplementation to the brain itself. We can enhance our creativity by broadening our view, both in a physical sense by dilating our pupils, but also in a more psychological sense by enhancing our positive emotions. We can get a broadened thought action repertoire in order to pick from and to benefit from creativity enhancement. So most of the mechanisms for enhancing creativity are based on this broaden and build model, but as well as the neural connectivity between the different areas of the brain. So for creativity, we need to have states where we enter into mental diffusion or separation between the different regions in the brain, and we also need to enter into mental focused states in order to create the creative work itself. Because overactivation of both is not beneficial for the enhancement of creativity. Creativity lies in between being focused and in being dispersed with our attention. Because we both needed the focused grind mode within creativity, but we also needed the dispersed ideation process of creativity. There are many techniques based on this within the science of creativity in order to enhance the broadening of our thought action repertoires, as well as the refocusing in order to manifest the creative works in themselves. But let's first look at this. What does this have anything to do with creativity? Well, this is the test of creativity. How many uses can you give for this brick? Apart from the obvious of construction and destruction, as in bludgeoning somebody over the head with it. Do you sell this as a fashion accessory? Use it as a pillow? Break into houses with it? Grind it and eat it? Do weird sex stuff with it? Plank with it? Burn it for decoration? Practice karate on it? Shoulder presses, bicep curls, Grand Theft Auto? Name as many things that you can have and utilize this brick for. Be as creative here as you can. You see how people high on drugs could be very good at this particular test. These are the metrics by which we can measure your creativity based on this test, on the different amounts of uses that you can give up per brick. It is dispersed thinking first for creativity. And brainstorming tools and lateral thinking skills, among them just focusing within the question itself, are the ways that we can improve this dispersed thinking. There are many ways that we can do this in habitual factors, which I will talk about later as well. The brainstorming techniques here are the ones that can help us in creating many more dispersed ideas around the question, like the question of a brick. We need to have a definition of the issue at hand in order for us to be benefiting from creativity enhancing tools. First, we need to have a goal in mind, so to say. More about that later. But again, without a unification of the ideas for utilization, all of it is useless. That is why people high on drugs, again, could not be necessarily considered creative in the focused sense of the word. They lean too far to the other side of too much mental dispersion and not enough neural connectivity for it. Especially because cannabis, for example, also helps with forgetting. It's true. It binds to those receptors. This is why none of the great works ever, even the ones that you might think of that have been touted as created under the influence, haven't been, but actually afterwards, by people who could refocus again. None of the greatest works ever were created under the influence of psychedelics. More likely, they were created under the influence of stimulants, caffeine and nicotine. But they were inspired by the diffusing activities, such as psychedelics. The question of psychedelics is a controversial issue when it comes to creativity enhancement, because of the two sides, the pros and cons of it, and because of the addictive potential of the drugs in themselves. The ideas and ideation is helped also by incubation and percolation. I can explain these mechanisms by the way that you have a great response to the argument that you had yesterday in the shower, because your brain was percolating and incubating all the while. You are sleeping as well. That is why just simply standing up from the creative work itself is a way that we can enhance creativity, because the brain is still working on the creative problem even when we are not focused consciously on it. And percolation means the exact same thing as well, just longer term. And those creative works, a lot of them were created because of these systems. But now that we know about the mechanisms of it, how can we utilize them in practical techniques for our life? Well, first it depends on our purposes, on what we want to achieve and what type of creative work that we would want to achieve. But I will hone on three S's: the sleep, supplements, and psychedelics. These are the underutilized mechanisms for creativity nowadays. These are the utilization of the mechanisms that I previously mentioned in action. For sleep, many great inventors and creative geniuses are very fond of using sleep and its different creativity enhancing neuronal mechanisms in order to enhance their creative problem solving, like Thomas Edison and Albert Einstein as well. Albert Einstein was very fond of sleep. These are just the most famous examples of using sleep and its different mechanisms in order to enhance creative problem solving. All of us have our chronotypes when it comes to sleep enhancement. And depending on your particular chronotype, which you can find out by taking this test, by the way, you can utilize your inbuilt chronotypal mechanisms in order for you to enhance your productivity by situating your creative works and focused works in the particular moments where your brain is most optimal for that particular task. For the different chronotypes, it's a different time, but it's mostly and usually situated around the morning as well as the evening periods for basically all of the chronotypes out there. But again, this depends on your specific chronotype. And that is especially the case because we exist in 90-minute ultradian cycles throughout the day, in which our learning, memory, and focus ebb and wane. That is why you can focus for a longer period, but then afterwards you just lose a lot of focus. Because we have these ultradian cycles. And most optimally, learning, memory, and creative tasks could be done in optimization of these ultradian cycles. These ultradian cycles are regulated by the cortisol, melatonin, and other neurotransmitter systems. These ultradian cycles are regulated by your exposure to the sun, so getting sunlight in the morning and into your eyes is beneficial for this, for creativity. But so is improving your sleep, getting quality, a good quantity, regular and good timed sleep for your chronotype again, as evidentiated by the many creative people throughout history with interesting sleep schedules as well, like with the Uberman sleep schedule. We work most efficiently when we utilize these cycles in order to implement the most efficient creative working tasks within those periods. That means that if we are lions doing the creative work in the morning, and if we are wolves doing the creative work in the evening, optimizing our life around these cycles is a way that we can enhance this. But so are optimizing our hormones being beneficial for enhancing creativity. And supplements work on this metric. They work on this idea of optimizing our hormones, particularly cortisol and melatonin. Melatonin may be enhancing creativity, whilst cortisol decreasing it, cortisol being the stress hormone. The most famous supplements going from natural to less natural are magnesium, zinc, ashwagandha for recovery as well as rest, Cola and ginkgo biloba. These are the most famous examples, but there are many other smart drugs and nootropics in order to enhance creativity itself. These are the more natural options for it, that are derived from plant materials, some teas and the like. The natural remedies that have been used throughout history by the Chinese and the Indians, as well as the indigenous peoples throughout history, in order to enhance their creativity. So creativity enhancement and using supplements and psychedelics for that is not a new invention. It is not something that we only do in the modernity. We are only doing it currently in a scientific manner, with studying these particular supplements. And I try to recommend those that are the most studied, and I try to refrain from recommending those that have been less studied. But these supplements and nootropics help us with neural connectivity because they help balance the hormones themselves and boost the ones that are responsible for learning, such as acetylcholine and glutamine, two major hormones when it comes to the learning and creative ideation process. They help balance the neurotransmitters, allowing for neural connectivity and therefore creativity. That is the mechanism. And there are less natural, nowadays, ways to implement the creative ideas themselves with stimulation, as well as more synthetic materials for the ideation process itself, such as caffeine, nicotine, and Adderall as examples of stimulants that helps us implement the creative ideas themselves. They are the ones that help us bring the ideas to fruition. They enhance focus and help us control our behaviors by also downregulating the chill neurotransmitters such as melatonin and adenosine. They can help us with increasing our focus by that mechanism. Whilst microdosing psychedelics might be beneficial for getting into the mental diffusion state. Microdosing some psychedelics, such as LSD, psilocybin, DMT, they have been shown to enhance neuronal connectivity, therefore helping people with mental health disorders, for example. But all of these, the more synthetic ones, less the natural ones, can lead to addiction. That is where I talk about being careful with the consumption of these particular substances, because they also have many side effects to them, including caffeine and nicotine and Adderall as well. Not to talk about the psychedelics, especially the more synthetic psychedelics that are out there. They are illegal for a reason, okay? It is about balance. And with our neurotransmitter balances, psychedelics might be too much for some people when it comes to enhancing creativity, just like how coffee and nicotine and Adderall might be too much for some people immediately. So lay off the ayahuasca trip for enhancing creativity, okay? Many of the psychedelics, as well as alcohol, could be considered helping creativity. They might help the balance for some people, but if we don't do them with good measure, and it's really hard to do them with good measure, then they might become extremely detrimental to our health, even if creativity is enhanced, at least in the short run. Liberal use of stimulants and sedatives are not recommended for this exact reason. The recommendation of psychedelics for creativity is a dangerous game. So I would more recommend the natural supplements, herbal remedies, and the like that don't have a potential for addiction. Oh, but creative people do it. I mean, yes, you are right. But on purpose and in moderation. And if they don't, they die early. So they are the two major aspects for creativity: the purpose in themselves and the balance and moderation in its consumption. The people who have used drugs and psychedelics and died early are the cautionary tales for us to learn from when it comes to utilizing psychedelics and stimulants for the enhancement of creativity. We have to look at our purposes and weigh their risks and rewards for our lives. And there are many other options not requiring any synthetic chemicals that are out there, not even supplements. Apart from optimizing for sleep and ultradian cycles, which are options that are available for every single person out there for enhancing creativity, there are other techniques that we can use the broaden and build theory of creativity for. Like, for example, mindfulness meditation and loving kindness meditation being the ones. These have been shown to enhance creativity because they enhance neuronal connectivity within the brain. We literally train our brain by mindfulness meditation in mental diffusion by separating ourselves from our thoughts and noticing thoughts as thoughts. It is a way that we become more creative simply by not thinking. I cannot tell you how many times I've had great creative revelations whilst meditating. As I said about incubation and percolation, your brain is still working even when you're not consciously thinking about a particular issue, and it might be thinking even more efficiently during that period. And this is not particularly my own as well. There have been many other examples throughout history of this particular mechanism at work. A similar mechanism is at work when we are exercising and walking, hiking. The similar mechanism for exercise particularly is that the extra blood flow to our brain helps it with learning and memory. Specifically, resistance training and high-intensity interval training might be beneficial for getting the hormones that are responsible for creativity as well. The extra blood flow to our brain helps in memory consolidation as well, and it has been shown in numerous studies that simply exercising, specifically high-intensity exercising, can greatly boost our creativity and memory consolidation as well as learning. Walking in nature is, I would say, one of the greatest tools for creativity. Just simply looking at the examples throughout history is incredible. Einstein, Darwin, Kant, they all had humanity-changing epiphanies whilst walking, in nature mostly as well. Nature and walking is the rule when it comes to creative discoveries throughout history rather than the exception. But so is brain training. All of the great people throughout history had many other activities that they were doing to train their brain. Like, for example, Einstein played the violin. We have modern methods that we can utilize the brain training mechanisms, like neurofeedback or binaural beats. Like, there are specific binaural beats that help us improve our creativity, especially the alpha and the theta waves for binaural beats. So when we also have a creative work at hand, we can put in binaural beats in order to enhance that particular brain state. Of course, this is still a developing science, but 40 Hz could be for attention as well, for the focus mode when it comes to creativity implementation. But simply learning and staying curious is one of the best ways that we can do brain training for ourselves and enhance creativity generally, as well as improve our life quality. They utilize the same mechanisms of neuronal connectivity, lateral thinking skills, and broaden and build. The way to utilize that is to just go on an adventure, exploring your town. Check out previously unseen parts of your town. Checking out creative works of art in a library, or an art museum, or a museum of all sorts. Really be there as well, being mindful in the presence of new sights, whether natural or creative. Listen to music and dance to it. Appreciate a sunset or a sunrise. jump in a puddle, climb a tree, take a hike, do something new basically. That is the principle here. Play board games, learn something new by checking out Kinu, for example, the application that I use for this. My first pathway was on the Phoenicians, okay? Pick one that you know nothing about and just learn about it. Stay curious. Did you know that they gave us olive oil production and tapas? Play puzzles, Sudoku. Check out a brain training application like Lumosity. Learn a programming language. Start a YouTube channel about something. Embrace uncertainty and risks when it comes to learning itself. Surprisingly, that is as well creativity enhancement technique. Start that business. Go talk to that girl that you wanted to talk to. Embrace the uncertainty and risk and discomfort in order to grow in creativity as well. Learn about your parents' childhood. You won't regret being able to tell more crazy stories. But do them all purposefully. Don't be careless, of course. But that is the greatest way to enhance creativity and creative problem solving. Is just discover your purpose. That is the one that sets apart the great creative geniuses from the greatest creative geniuses. Is that they all did it under a great sense of purpose. The greatest creative geniuses throughout history have lived with purpose, having an inspirational goal that they were striving towards, because they had a ludicrous idea in mind. They had to become really creative in their work in order to bring them to fruition. That is why, to some people, psychedelics might help discovering purpose, because of the dispersion it might cause. Well, hey young man, are you living with clarity and purpose? Or do you feel lost and in search of lost time? That is the question that makes or breaks the value of creativity, truly. Lateral thinking skills and diffusion, supplements, psychedelics and sleep, walking and working, neuronal connectivity and brain training, curiosity and mindfulness. They are all useful techniques for improving creativity within the broaden and build theory as well. But the ability to have a purpose statement is one of the greatest ones for enhancing creativity. For having a goal is the greatest way to find pathways to that goal, especially if it's deeply motivating. The benefits of purpose are so incredibly numerous, it's really hard to fit it on a screen in order to keep it readable. The ability to formulate your purpose in a sentence with the formula kind of to, verb, specific group, so that goal in mind, ideal vision. Basically this purpose formula, or something similar. Here are some examples of purpose statements to create your own. These are the ones that are incredibly powerful for enhancing creativity. Just think about it, wouldn't that make sense? If you have one thing that you are obsessed with and you're constantly thinking about that, it is like having that brain incubation and percolation working for you 24/7. Obsession with a purpose is the greatest creativity enhancement trick out there, it seems. What is your purpose statement? You can use these techniques in order to discover it as well, like the creativity enhancing techniques, with the question of what is my purpose. That is the one that you need to brainstorm on about, basically, with the lateral thinking skills and the mindfulness, the supplements, psychedelics and sleep. You know what I mean. The ability to do this is a great predictor of so many positive things, and that is why I built my school community around it, the Purpose School, which you can join by clicking on the top link in the description. For a more in-depth purpose protocol, join our school community. Click and watch the video on the screen. And remember to waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. And just be one.